Good evening. Good evening, good evening, good evening. All right, so I am going to work on not slinging my hair tonight for the purpose of this being a non-judgment zone. So good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. I need to take my glasses off. I can never see. I just said I was working on this whole not slinging my hair. I must say it's the new hairstyle though. Although my friends are being very judgmental, I'm sure they're watching this and being judgmental. Look, friend. All right, so I apologize for not getting on earlier. As you can probably, as you may be aware, I am back in the workforce, so I'm having to modify my schedules on Mondays so that I can continue to go live, continue to share my story, continue to be supportive, and also in the same token, make an end to a means, or a means to an end, I'm sorry. So I will not be very long this evening. And the question was posed as to what my topic would be this evening. And I kind of wrestled with a couple of things that were resonating with me as to where I would go with this evening's message. So it started out this morning as I was on my way to work, and I was listening to the radio talk about DMX being on life support and how things weren't looking good. And it really, throughout the day, I kind of entertained the idea of whether or not I would go on that journey of discussing someone, in the media, someone in the limelight or a celebrity. So I don't want to focus so much on DMX per se, but I do want to talk about the aftermath of drugs, particularly hard recreational drugs. For those of you who may be watching or may know my story, I'm a product of two parents that have unfortunately chosen the path, a long journey of drug addiction. My mother, who thankfully is now in the recovering phase. But where I wanted to tie this in very quickly this evening and kind of talk about is there is an aftermath. Even when you reach that place where you have gotten clean, you've made a decision to live beyond the drugs or the usage of it. And sometimes there's an opportunity for many, and then sometimes they're in positions like DMX, who, if you know his story, he's battled with his drug addiction for many, many years. And it seemed like it just never would manifest into a straight and narrow path for him. One of the most remarkable artists out there, and yet he has struggled with addiction. And, it is my belief that when I watched him many years ago on his interview with Ayanna Van Zandt, I noticed, one of the things that they talked about was that there were so many childhood issues that were buried that he never had an opportunity to deal with. And maybe that was the reason for his journey being so heavily brought on and continuously being where he gravitated to drugs. But I want to talk, more so about the aftermath. And, as I mentioned, my mother is fortunately on a path of cleanliness. But after 30 years of drug addiction and many, many strokes as a result of the addiction, her life will never be the same. Let's just call it what it is. So, I came home this evening and I was really, hey, Mike, I was really frustrated because I deal daily with the results of my mother's addiction, leading her now into phases of dementia. And it's hard to watch on a daily basis. So I'm at this place where there are days when I am stronger, days when I can handle it a little bit differently. Today wasn't one of those days. And I didn't realize that I would struggle as much. But when you have a parent that forgets the little things, the things that all of us take for granted, it becomes harder to watch. I get up every day and there are days when I think she's okay. And then there are days where I don't know what to expect. The normal things that we take for granted, like just when our body tells us to get up and go to the restroom, your mind says get up and go, you get up and go. And when you're in this phase of dementia where there's a disconnect and the people around you don't always understand that disconnect. Well, I am that person, again. I didn't know this morning when I listened to the message about DMX and him being, one breath short of transitioning, how difficult it would be when I came home today and had to, accept and realize that this journey with a recovering addict is hard. It's not easy. And, I don't want to get on a soapbox tonight because by no means am I anything besides thankful that the fact that I've had an opportunity to see my mother through her cleanliness. I've had an opportunity to be with her every day, even when I don't know what that day is going to bring. We're at a point now where, tonight it was difficult because I've been trusting her to take her medicine on her own. And tonight I realized that I can no longer do that, that I have to make sure that she takes care of herself. I now have to make sure that I take care of her differently. So, my message tonight, while I said I would not be long and lengthy, was to encourage those of you who have dealt with someone that has an addiction, someone that is recovering from an addiction, someone that, doesn't realize what their addiction can become. My job is to encourage you all to just be aware, and be compassionate with those that are struggling with addictions. Help them help themselves. And, I spent a lot of years trying to force my mom to get clean. And it never worked. I spent years fighting and, fussing and, if you just do this, things will be different. But I had to wait for that moment when it was time for her to make a decision. And I always promised her one thing. I said, the day that you decide to get your life right, I will be your biggest supporter. I will be your biggest fan, that I would stand with you and walk on that journey. And I have lived up to that commitment. But I can tell you, it is not easy. It's not easy dealing with a parent that's suffering with dementia on any level. But you can only imagine if you know that that dementia is brought on by their choices that, were not right choices. At one point in 2008, the doctors told me that when my mom did her MRI that she had had so many strokes that they couldn't even determine just how many. And at that point, they told me that it would be dementia, that she would probably never walk again. She would never do all the normal things again. And that was 2008. We're in 2021. And one thing for sure, she walks just fine. She walks a little slow, but she walks fine, especially when she go into the kitchen. So again, all of this is to say that I am so very thankful and grateful. But I do want to encourage each and every one of you to be kind to one another. We never know anyone's journey. We don't know, like DMX struggling from a child and never being able to get to that place of peace from whatever childhood issues that he had or that he had to face, and he had to mask his whole lifetime behind the drugs. So you just never know what someone's story is, and you never know where that story will lead them. So I just encourage people, I am here every Monday and Wednesday just to be encouraging, just to share my story in hopes that someone will see the reason that it is so important to be gentle and be kind with one another and have compassion and show love and just be readily available for those who are willing and open to being helped. Don't ever reject someone that is willing to be helped. I don't care what you think the circumstances are, because you could very well be the difference between their transition and their transformation. So on that note, I want to say good night to everyone. As always, I love you. Continue to be inspired. Continue to inspire each other. I'm sorry it's late. It's real late for me. I'm operating on senior hours. So have a good night, everyone. Again, I will post this. It will be at Facebook. Be sure to follow my YouTube, and it's my name, Melissa Morgan, Coaching and Conversation, and subscribe. Share this video with anyone that you think it may encourage. And I will see you guys on Wednesday. It'll probably be a little bit earlier. I'm thinking around 8 o'clock. But until then, have a good night and happy Monday.